Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. So, Geoff, welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I am so excited to have you here because I read your book, From Fear of Failure to Flying High. Sorry, that's a tongue twister for me. From fear of failure to flying high. And I was so excited because there's so many components to this book that resonate with me that I can't wait to jump into it with you. But before we get started, just the background, a little bit of background to everybody on who they're listening to and, just how you got from where you were to why you wrote this book.
Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show, Sue. It's so lovely to be here and talking with you. And thank you also for introducing my book, which has been a long time coming. It was a book that I set out to write in 2019, and I have a mind that gets diverted and distracted into all sorts of avenues. I love the world of personal growth and self-development. And so I went off on so many different tracks. And it wasn't until I started telling my story, my life story, to a marketing guru who said to me, "Oh my goodness, Geoff, your life is all about the fear of failure."
Mm.
Aticophobia, if anybody wants the academic, scientific sounding terminology. And it was such a shock to me that I came from a very normal, ordinary family that wanted to stay small in the world. I was admired. You look at a Tony Robbins or an Oprah Winfrey, and I never thought, oh, I didn't come from a background of abuse. I didn't come back from living in a penniless, poverty-stricken family background. I came from a normal background. And so it was very difficult to know, well, where's my motivation going to come from to progress in life, to be a success, to have the things that I want to have. And I think a lot of people have that. They think they should either be born into a privileged background or a background without any privilege. Otherwise, where does the fire in the belly come from? Where does the motivation come? And this point was really brought home to me when my father passed away. And my brothers and I, we were clearing out his belongings, and we found two board games. One game was very like Monopoly. Another game was a sporting game, covered in dust, never having seen the light of day. To me, that was somebody's talent and skill that had never been expressed in the world. And I think there are a lot of us that feel that way out there. There are a lot of us that know somewhere within us we have that diamond, that shining diamond of talent and skill. But fear holds us back. Fear of failure holds us back. And it was from that moment onwards that I made it my mission to help as many people as I can realize their potential, express their gift in the world. We all have it. Because of my small early life, there was always that thought as a child that maybe the world is divided into winners and losers.
Black and white.
Yeah. Do we?
Yeah. And we do a lot of that, don't we? It just gets us stuck in that mentality. It's like, oh, either I'm really famous or I'm nobody, and there's nothing in between. And it's a matter of, do you find that it's just a matter of perspective in the stories that we tell ourselves?
Precisely. Precisely. And then if we have that feeling within us, surprise, surprise, events happen to prove to us that we are that identity. It's almost like we invite them in. And it's not true. it's a lie. Our mind tells us a lie. We all have something. Um,
Mhm.
if you don't mind, I'll tell you one of the stories that might be really useful to your listeners. Um, Several years ago, I met a lady. She was approaching 50. She had been primarily a mother and a wife, so she looked after the household, looked after her three children. Her husband was quite a successful businessman, kind of looked after him. The three children had flown the nest, and her words to me were, "I'm stuck in these four walls, looking at these four walls. I don't have any talent. I don't have any skill. Is my life over? What am I to do?"
Mhm.
Now, talk therapy, talk coaching wouldn't necessarily have worked here. We needed to get into the subconscious. We needed to get deeper. And when we uncovered that one of her greatest loves was the rock band Status Quo. I don't know if you've come across them.
No.
Also, she was very, very good at, as many mothers are, she was very good at organizing.
Yeah, I can relate.
Fast forward to where she was after working through my process. Um, she bought the fan club of this rock band. She started selling their merchandise. She interviewed the band. She wrote a book about the band. She organized all the fans to go to gigs. And then she gravitated on to putting on music events and finding young musicians uh,
Wow.
that she could introduce to the stage and introduce to an audience.
Yeah.
She found her niche. She found what she was meant to do. She loved it. She made money from it, and it was, and that's the sort of expansion into life that people can experience.
Wow. So let's pause there a minute. How do you, what are some of the, I want to get practical. What are some of the tools that like somebody's listening to that going, wow, I'm that stuck person right where I'm at. Like, it's like I'm in a job I don't like. I'm in a profession that's not fulfilling. I do the same thing over and over again, and I'm not passionate about life anymore.
Yes, yes,
Small steps. Where does one and really that's also I'm gonna piggyback that question as well. You created an assessment called the blank canvas assessment, which I took. And a great question you posed right at the beginning was we were to ask ourselves, what do I want? Who am I? And who do I want to be?
yes,
Three very challenging questions
yes.
to somebody who's never been asked that before. So I'll let you continue your thoughts on it.
So people will fall into two camps. There will be those people who have the clarity to go, this is who I really want to be. When they're asked the question, they will have the clear thinking. They won't necessarily have the blocks, and they won't necessarily see how to get there, but they'll at least have a vision of their future. There are those who can't. There's just an absolute blank. Life events, other people have told them that they can't be that person they wish to be, and so that's a slightly deeper problem. I have a process. My company, my business is called the Blank Canvas Training. And I believe that other than a lobotomy, where we just, take the mind of the brain out completely, we can wake up every day with a blank canvas.
Hmm.
Don't take your past with you. Don't take what people have said about you with you into today. People look for a birthday or New Year's resolutions to have a blank canvas, but there's no reason why we can't have a blank canvas every morning. And so, if we're not running the movie of our past life every day, then we're a film director for the day. We created. Who do you want to be? Who are you being today? Now, you ask about the tools and the techniques. I have a particular process which goes into the prefrontal cortex of the brain. This
Mm.
was something taught to me actually by a lady in Denver, Colorado, your country, yes. And she taught me this 18 years ago. And firstly, I was a client of hers, and I used this to clear some of my stuff, to clear
Mm.
my fear of failure, etc. But it's a process. It's a means of removing the negative identity we have of ourselves. But it doesn't just stop there. It then replaces that with empowering beliefs,
Mm.
empowering values. It remolds our identity. We don't become something else. We just become that best version of ourselves, which we're looking to be. Um, does that kind of, and
It,
just
it does.
to go to the assessment. Um, the assessment, if people send that assessment to me, because I've been doing this for so long, I can identify blocks that we can't see ourselves. We don't necessarily see. So it gives me the platform to, these sessions that I have with people. And my mission in life is to have everybody just try it once. Because it's freeing, it's liberating. Uh,
Mhm.
but the assessment helps me see what the block might be that is holding a person back, because we can't
Okay.
see ourselves.
Yeah, that was gonna be another question, like, what are you know, I know when I started my personal development journey a couple of years ago, I realized there was something more,
Mm,
and then I was struggling to see what it was that was in the way,
yes,
and then when I started working with a coach and going deeper into where my limiting beliefs were and what they were actually how destructive limiting beliefs
yeah,
can be,
yes,
then going through the process of extrapolating them and then rewriting them. And it's not, it can't, I guess it can be done by yourself. I don't know. I didn't really do that by myself. I did it with a coach.
yes.
But just finding and overcoming those. Do you find fear of failure to be a more common root for people's limiting beliefs? Or are there other fear of things that you find are also common in addition to failure?
There are many fears, as we all know. The fear of losing, the fear of
Sure.
rejection. There are so many fears out there. What what I find, some of the symptoms. If people want to investigate, is it fear of failure that I'm experiencing? Um, Many people, they're waiting for something to happen to give them a sign that they're on the right track.
Ah, okay.
Or they may know what they should be doing, but they're avoiding it. So that's a symptom of fear of failure. That's an inability to just go and do it, because, I'm waiting for a sign, or I'm waiting for the right person to come into my life to help me do this, or
Mhm.
um, I noticed it primarily when I went to, because I was a personal growth junkie. I've done many, many things in personal growth and self development. And I asked myself, why, after a workshop or a course, why can a certain percentage of people take the information that the guru or the teacher teaches? Why can they take it and just go almost on a straight line and achieve what they want to achieve? And yet others hold back, second guess, question the guru. Does this really work?
Mhm. Mhm.
Will this really work for me? Um, Wait, avoid. And of course, as you wait and avoid and procrastinate, then the motivation dies, it fades, it
Mm.
dilutes, it
Right.
does it, and people start to convince themselves, this won't work for me.
How do you help people overcome that? What are your thoughts on moving from the inaction to action?
I mean, truly, this is where I do believe, and obviously, I'm I'm a coach, but I've
Right.
had a lot of coaches. You almost need to be on the, you need to borrow confidence from your coach. You almost need to,
Borrowing one's belief. I have a whole chapter in my book on
right,
borrowing
yeah,
one's belief. Yes,
yeah,
yeah, I so I'm su I'm not surprised that you said that
yeah,
because it's so true. It's you have to if the brain doesn't have evidence, it's really hard to believe or convince yourself that you can achieve something that you've never done before.
yes, absolutely. No,
And
100%.
yeah, and having somebody with you, and or just yeah, having somebody in your life doesn't even have to be a coach. It could be a spouse, could be a friend, it could be a partner,
Yes,
could be anybody, right? It doesn't have to be a coach in particular, but to have somebody that has that belief
yeah,
in you and to instill that and to allow that for you to, continue to kind of like do that thing that you don't think you can do, but at least you can go try it. And out of that, so I got a question that would come out of that. So here's somebody they try something new
yes,
and the outcome is it doesn't work. It didn't work. There was a failure involved. There was a loss of a job. There was something that it didn't go quite the way they wanted to. And they come back to you and say, okay, Jeff, I tried this thing. It didn't go the way I wanted it to. What would be your advice to that for overcoming that fear of failure, using that failure word? How do you twist that around so that we don't think failure, we think blank.
so I run an online course, and one of the things that I advise people to do is to try and remove judgments from their life, judging things. I mean, success and failure, those are just human judgments. What is success in one person's mind is failure in another person's mind.
Mm,
What are these terms? They're human made um, ideas, aren't they? Stop. I would ask my clients, don't think of things in terms of success or failure.
mm,
Now, if somebody's gone into a new venture and they've tried something and it hasn't worked out, firstly, it may not be for them. It may not be.
yeah,
Fear of failure and focusing on that and having myself opened up to that allowed me to understand what my coaching and mentoring was all about. I'd been a coach
mm,
and mentor before that, but it was like, well, I can help anybody.
mhm.
But actually, what started to come to me is the people that have got the exact problem that I had, and I've got a lifetime of experience with.
Right, right. They make the best coaches.
Absolutely.
They do, they do.
With you when it's your personal life and what you've had, your challenge, the challenge you've had in life.
Mm,
Um, so just having that opened up my life and my success with clients. Um, so firstly, if something hasn't worked, you just need help in tweaking it or changing it slightly. Um, many people nowadays, they're looking to make money and they
mhm,
follow the next shiny object, and that shiny object isn't for them. And again, that's where a coach will help you find, hang on, what is your gift? What is your gift zone?
right, right.
Just as an aside, you know, I help people with time management, and I divide time management into gift zone, nuts and bolts zone, connection zone, and stretch zone. So your gift zone is what you were put on this earth to do. You need to be spending as much of your time in your gift zone. Nuts and bolts are all the software platforms, the marketing, the accounts. Try
Yeah.
outsource as much of that as you can. Connections, that's what you and I are doing. We're connecting now, and
Right.
connecting with your listeners. so much of your week every week needs to be spent making connections and new connections. Stretch is where we get out of our comfort zone and we say, right, I want to be, I don't know, interviewed on a TV show next week, or whatever it is that
Yeah.
stretches us and makes us slightly uncomfortable. Um, and then going back to your original question about, if somebody is fearing failure and experiences failure, mostly with almost every client that I've ever worked with, there is a reframing of that failure
Hmm.
where it hasn't been a failure.
Right. Right. How important it is. It just goes back to what we tell ourselves, what is true, what is not, how we view that circumstance. It can be seen if we allow it to be viewed as a failure in our eyes, then of course it's going to be that negative thing. If we look for the positives, if we look for the good things that came out of it, because if we're honest with ourselves, every negative or traumatic situation, and I don't want to make a blanket statement, but I'm just saying most things in life, we can take a step back from when we're not so much in the situation anymore, and we could find at least one thing that was good that
Yeah.
came out of it.
Yes.
We could find one, if you can find just one thing to be grateful for that circumstance, then, it happened for a reason. My coach, I have to tell you, when I first started coaching with him, and this was over a year and a half ago, the second session he asked me, he's like, "Sue, do you think things happen to you or for you?" And that was the first time I had ever heard that question asked to me, because
Yes.
I haven't been in the personal development space very long, maybe about 2.5 years or so, but that was the first time I ever heard that question asked. And I thought to myself, I was like, first I thought, "Oh, is this a trick question?" And then I was like, the second one was, "Well, wait a minute, if I answer things happen to me, then I play the victim in my life, and I don't really want to be the victim. I
Yes.
really want to be empowered to be in control of my life." So then when I flipped it and I said, "Okay, well, things happen for me," then it allows me to press into and find the good in what is going on. And I heard it once said that, gratitude and frustration or anger or fears, like gratitude can't live in the same space as anger or depression. You can't be both. You can't be depressed and grateful at the same time.
Very good.
And I'm the type of person that tries to disprove everything that I hear, right? So
Yeah.
I thought about that and I thought, wow, well, let me see. So, in a state of gratefulness, when I started to feel depressed, I'm like, wait a minute, well, let me see if this really works. I did. I pressed in. I was like, wait a minute, what are these things that I'm grateful for? Now, I have to say, it's not an instant for me. It wasn't instantaneous. It took a little bit of reframing. It took a little bit of meditation. It took a little bit of time, but it's like, wow, after a while, gratitude now just is steeped in my life, in everything. I just get up every morning very grateful, regardless of the circumstances that are going on. So I know we kind of digress a little bit
Oh,
there, but
that's wonderful to hear how you've
yeah,
dealt with this. One of my favorite phrases is "out of the darkness comes the light."
yes,
And if people look at the so-called failures or the so-called uh, dark times in their lives, if you look back on that, often there's a dawn or there's a light that comes
yeah,
directly after that darkness. And I've had business failure. I back in my early 20s, I was a teacher, and I was talent spotted to come to America, of all places, and play professional soccer. And it was a dream job. I was going to be a sportsman. I was going to be paid a lot of money. 7 days before flying out to the States for this dream job, I dislocated my right ankle and broke 3 bones in my right foot.
ooh,
My dream was over. It's and back in those days. This is a few years ago. There weren't there weren't the medical means of just repairing this simply and easily. And yeah, the dream was over. At the time, I was devastated.
Yeah.
Um, However, it led me to, and I don't know if your listeners know of Dan Millman, or you know of Dan Millman, the peaceful warrior. It led me to his book, which was a personal growth, self development book. He had had a motorcycle accident with a similar accident to mine.
Mm.
He went on to be a world champion gymnast, and it just opened up the world of personal growth to me, and led me on the path I was supposed to go onto. So,
Mhm.
sometimes when an event seems so big in our heads, oh, this is a disaster, this is awful.
Yeah.
Years later, we can look back and see that as being minuscule.
Right, right. When we put things Oh, go ahead. I saw you wanted to finish.
No, 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 no. Go ahead.
I was gonna say when you what you said, when we look back at something, it seems often minuscule. That
Yes.
made me think that if we take our life instead of on just a snapshot, if we put our life on a continuum, and project out 20, 30, 40 years, depending on, however old you are, when you do it that way and you say, okay, look back 10 years. Where were you 10 years ago? What have you accomplished 10 years ago or from 10 years to now? And then you go out and you think of, wait a minute, even though I'm 52, even though I'm 52, my life in some respects is just being rewritten. It's just beginning. I'm just
Yeah,
on this
yeah,
journey into another iteration of who I am. And then if I put it on that timeline, I've got 40 years.
yeah.
I can
Absolutely.
build out whatever I want, and achieve whatever I wanna achieve. I think the saying goes, "We overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but we underestimate what we can do in 5."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
If
yeah, and I thought about that, and you mentioned before about gifts, about finding your gift zone. What are 1 or 2 things people can do to help them either find their gift zone or start that journey for locating or, like, trying to press into what their gift zone is, especially if they're listening and they're going, I don't really know what my gifts are. How do I find those?"
What did you love doing as a child?
Mm.
That's one way. Some people, they love painting and draw. Uh, there was one guy I coached, and he wanted to make money. He was a man in his 30s, and he was money driven. How can I make money? And he was looking at cryptocurrency, affiliate marketing, property, all of these different things.
Mhm.
And I asked him the question, what did you love doing as a child? Oh, drawing. I love drawing and painting. And I said, okay, um, any particular niche of drawing? And he loved, his other love was cars. He has started a greetings card business, um, for what he calls, for petrol heads, as he calls them. Um, and he is doing these wonderful drawings of cars, bespoke to the recipient, whoever's going to receive
Yeah.
that card. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, Valentine's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
cards, etc.
Wow.
Very successful business. That was his gift. So instead of
Right.
looking outside of himself at what the rest of the world was making money at, and looked at who am I? Who am I to be? Who am I being? How was I born? Well, your innate gifts have probably followed you around,
Yeah.
but we can't
Yeah.
see them.
Can't always see them, right? Yeah. Isn't that there are the 4 levels of competence or incompetence.
Yes,
The highest is unconscious competence,
yes.
where you're so good at something, it doesn't even feel like it's
Yeah,
just so natural to you that you can just have it be a part of your life, and then it's just so natural, right? That unconscious competence where you've just achieved that level of whatever it is that you can do that's just so natural and you're just in that gifts zone.
Absolutely.
So yeah, yeah, it's a process. It is
Yes. And that,
definitely a
sorry, and that is the issue with gifts. Often because they come so easily to us, we don't value them. Oh, but I can do
mm.
that easily. Oh, but I can write a book easily, or I can draw easily, or I can speak on stage easily. And so we don't value it because, well, there hasn't been struggle. But what we forget is we don't need to struggle, you know?
I love that you said that. I just wanna pause right there that you don't have to struggle because there is you hear it often. I'm not sure if it's like this in the UK, but you hear it here often, grit. You have to have grit. You have to grind. It's gotta be challenging. It has to be difficult for you to do in order for it to feel like you are achieving something. And I think sometimes, yes, there is that component of, yes, it's hard. I helped run a small business for the last 5 months. It is hard. There's no question. It is hard. There's no question at all. It's a hard thing to do. But in a matter of perspective, for myself, it wasn't really hard. It was just problems and challenges
Yes,
that I had to face and that I had to overcome. And so, but I also used my gifting and my talents in that job as well. So there was that balance between what's challenging and was it hard or did I have to have that grit and versus not. So I'm glad you said that because some of us feel like, oh, it's got to be hard for it to be meaningful.
you just got to watch the great singers, watch Pavarotti, or watch the great actors and actresses, watch the great sports people. They do what they do effortlessly. You're right, though. Will there be challenges along the way? I mean, that's the thing. Often people who fear failure they want to avoid challenges. They want to
Mhm.
avoid
Pain.
forks in the road, difficulties. Difficulties in life are as certain as death. You know, it's
Yeah.
without those difficulties, we would not grow. Accept them, accept them, and just work through them. It's we cannot avoid them, and it's that avoidance of them that makes us contract and stay small in the world. Whereas if we invite not invite you don't that's the other thing, you don't need to invite in challenges. They'll come, life will bring, but they're, as your coach said, they're for you, not against you.
Mhm.
Have you come
Yeah.
across the concept of the gap and the gain?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I've read that one, and
Yeah.
then their follow-up is 10x is easier than 2x. I've read
Ben
that as well.
Hardy,
Yeah,
yes.
Ben Hardy. Yeah, Ben Hardy's great. And, the gap in the gain. Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's like closing the gap between who you are and who you want to be, and just finding that, you know well, for me personally, I think he also wrote the book Who Not How
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
So the book Who Not How is sometimes it's like you know what you want to do, you just need to find the who to help you get there and start taking the small steps in that direction of what you want to be. What are your thoughts on manifestation and setting vision goals, writing things down? What have you seen in your experience in that area?
I have one particular non-negotiable habit that I do every day, and I've been doing it for years without fail. The first thing I do upon waking every morning is I'll take my cup of coffee, a pen, and a journal, and I'll journal. Now, I have a methodology for myself. If I detect any negative, if it's a Monday morning and the tasks I have ahead of me, the weather's bad, the tasks I have ahead of me are not particularly inviting, I can journal out that negativity. I
Mm,
can put it down on paper. I can get it out of my head and onto paper. And I tend to advise people, do this with pen and paper. Don't do it with an
mhm.
electronic device. We need that human connection, and we also need to slow. Computers, iPads, smartphones, they're all about speeding things up. Journaling should be about slowing things down and really catching what our thoughts are.
Mhm.
So journaling, I believe, and then coming back to my assessment and coming back to the name of my company, Blank Canvas Training. Who do I want to be today? Who am I going to be today? Who am I going to be for my wife, my family, my children, my people who work for me? Who am I to be? And if you can start, and it doesn't take me much time to do this. People think this should be, oh, I need to get out to work in the morning, or it's an onerous task. Some mornings it will take a very short amount of time. Other mornings it will take a bit longer. It helps me and the people I've taught this to get into the flow right at the start of the day.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I like that. You know what I like about that? We opened, our conversation with me talking about the 3 questions that you pose at the beginning of your assessment. What do I want? Who am I? Who do I want to be? What I like about what we were just talking about is who do I want to be today?
Yes.
Today. It's like the here, the now, the next 16 hours that I'm awake. Who do I want to be today? And I think what I'm capturing and what I want to encourage people on is that you don't have to figure out who you want to be 10 years from now because some that could be overwhelming to somebody. That's actually we really can't figure out who we're going to be 10 years from now. Let's get raw and real.
Yeah.
10 years ago, if you asked me who do you want to be 10 years from now, I couldn't have answered the question.
Exactly.
Y none of us can, really, if you really, really, really think about it. Like, maybe the profession might stay the same, okay, but are you the same person? Are you still living in the same house? Are you still married? Do you have children? Do you not any of it, right? Any of it, but who you are today. I love that. Just a practical step. Who do I want to be today? How do I want to show up today?
Today is just a microcosm of your life
Right.
anyway. Who you are being today um, will help determine tomorrow and your life.
Mhm,
And who you are being today, that energy that you give off today will affect those around you. Because I have
mm.
a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm a positive person, and I'm upbeat, but I'm surrounded by negative people." Or somebody
Yeah.
in my family is like, how can I impact them? And people are trying to change others around them. You can't. But when you change yourself, you will see the energy change in other
Mhm.
people. And if you can do that on a daily basis, it's incremental. It
Right.
grows. It grows.
Right, right. So for people to, we only have today. We're anchored in today. If we do this journaling exercise in the morning, who do I want to be today? What is your advice to people who continue to play the past regret film? Oh, but this happened to me and whatever. It's something that happened in the past and it's stuck there and it's not going anywhere. What are you some thoughts and suggestions on that?
I mean, certainly my process, the blank canvas process, where I work on the prefrontal cortex, can get rid of that very quickly. I've had people come to me who've had 9, 10 years of therapy, talking therapy, and actually just going over that past event or going over
Mm,
that past, and it just keeps them stuck in that place. Whereas this can rid you of that, whatever that block is, very quickly. Very quickly and very deeply on a deep basis. So there is that. There is that. Um, the other aspect is tough love.
mm,
We humans can often wallow in feeling sorry for ourselves. And sometimes we actually and it's not given out with any sort of blame or guilt or shame. It's given out with love that stop it. Don't go back there. And
Yeah.
we do have the power within our minds to control those thoughts. I was very lucky in the COVID year when we none of us could go anywhere. Um, to be connected to a Dr. Leonard Laskow. I don't know whether you've ever come across him at all. He's an American. Um, he's written a fantastic book called Forgiving Love. The forgiving is separated, so it's forgiveness, but it's forgiving love. And he was a scientific medical doctor working in a hospital, but he also had this spiritual leaning. And he decided, and this is in the 1960s, he decided to try healing cancer cells through meditation.
Mm.
And the first patient he ever did the meditation on, she had a cancer cell in her stomach and she never came back. And he was really worried that had it worked, had it not worked? And luckily, several months later, he bumped into her and said, "You didn't come back. What were the results? What was the outcome?" And she said, "Oh, I didn't need to come back. It went away. The cancer cells went."
Wow. Wow.
And the reason I brought him up is, why do people stay stuck? When people realize that he maintains all our pain and suffering in life, all human pain and suffering
Mm.
comes from our disconnect between how much we love ourselves.
Mm.
And if we and and so when you say how can you help people, overcome helping a person to love themselves more and bridge that gap between what,
Mm.
what they think of themselves and how much they should love themselves as a human being, that overcomes fear of failure. That overcomes
Mm.
the staying stuck in
Mhm.
that space. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, it does, it does. We hear a lot of phrases, uh, personal development space, conversations, whatever, and teaching people to love themselves is common. We're hearing that, people want to be seen, loved, and heard, so people need to teach them to love themselves. Somebody listening might be like, "Well, yeah, okay, that's great, but what's one thing that I could do to help love myself or an example, or if there's somebody I wanna teach them to love themselves?" Let's get practical for a minute. What's a few 1 or 2 things we hear that, but it's like the first thought is, "Okay, yeah, that's great, but what do I do?"
I mean, in my daily journaling, I will
Mhm.
advise, what is good about you? What do
Mm.
you know? Our mind automatically, when we set about our day, our mind will automatically go to, "Oh, why am I stuck in this job? I hate this.
Mm.
Oh, because I'm not good enough to get a better job, or I'm not brave enough." We can quite often start our days looking at the negativity of our situation in life. So stop that. Start your day by going, "Do you know what? I'm a really kind person. I gave away
Mm.
uh, just." And it's just small things. It's just small. You talked about gratitude, and I know a lot of people find it difficult to to think of things to be grateful for. It's like they start gratitude journals, and it's like they go through the obvious things and then run out of things to be grateful for.
Yeah, yeah.
But, reminding ourselves, and what I've often done at my workshops is I've had people bring in a photograph of themselves as a 2-year-old. I,
Mm.
I think small children are the closest things to spirit
Mm.
that we can find. look at yourself
Wow.
as a child. Look at yourself. Look at that photograph of yourself as a 2-year-old. You know, um, do you really want to criticize that child and say how useless it is, or no?
Mm,
You only want to give love. That's a way of growing the love for yourself by reminding yourself who you can be, who you are. You that being is you. Several
yeah.
years later.
Wow. Yeah. Thinking about like, how would you speak to that child today? Sometimes we use these words we speak to ourselves are so harsh. I'm stupid. I don't believe I did that. You're dumb, that kind of stuff. Would you say that to that 2-year-old child? Of course we wouldn't. I want to circle back to gratitude for a moment. You mentioned about how sometimes it's difficult for us to be grateful, or we find that we're grateful for the same things over and over again. We're just struggling with that. I just want to quick share with you that as I was thinking about gratefulness, I also kept a gratitude journal for a long time, for many, 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 many months. And I kind of got away from it, and went back to it. But what I'm finding now with gratitude is that it's not a list. It's a feeling. It is a
Wow. Yeah.
countenance. It's something that's deeper in the soul than what's on paper. And the what I want to encourage people with is that even if you don't feel that gratefulness, for me personally, as I continue to press into being grateful, even for the difficult circumstances that I've come across, and looking for the positives in those hard things, gratefulness is now one of those energy spots, for lack of a better term, that
Wow.
I live in.
Yes.
It's just I'm grateful. I get up every morning, I go, "I'm grateful to be here, grateful to be alive.
Yeah.
What can I do for somebody today?" What conversation or whatever it is. So,
Fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, grateful. Yeah, it moved from gratefulness, moved from a state of just a thing to look for, to do, to actually a state of being.
Yes.
I would, yeah, and I would submit that that would be the same for other areas like happiness or joyful or thankful, grateful. Those positive energy types of beings, countenance.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
and I thank you for sharing that, because I totally resonate with that. When I teach people journaling, and you, when I coach, and men are worse for this, in some respects, because men don't want. Many men, I know I'm generalizing, but many men do not want to engage with their emotions and their feelings. So it's,
mm,
how are you today? I'm fine. I'm fine. And with journaling, a bit like many people who I've taught journaling to, they start off and it's just a to-do list. It's
yeah,
like, "Oh, I can't think of what to say." And so and that proves there is a wall of resistance. But once, if you persist and if you can be consistent, you break that wall of resistance down and you get to your emotions and your feelings, but you just have to kind of keep at it. So
yeah,
it's a bit like what you've said, um, with gratitude. You can start off just being grateful for this and that and the other, but then you've obviously had this treasure chest that you've unfolded
yeah,
by keeping the process going.
yeah.
So there is an element of persistence and consistency required. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, with anything, right? If we
Yeah.
continue to layer one thing on top of another and not to give up on anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes we give up too easily. We look for that microwave result. We wanted it to happen yesterday. So if I've only been doing this for 2 or 3 days, then, and I haven't gotten the result that I wanted, you know, um, I'll give up on it.
It's
And
got worse, hasn't it? It's got worse. Where
yeah, I think so.
society is looking for instant results now, and yeah, life doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Jeff, I'm enjoying our conversation, but I want to kind of bring all of this to a close. What's one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
Oh wow. Wow, that's a really good question. I suppose. I mean, fear of failure is such a. I don't think people recognize fear. You've asked about fear of failure, so I mean, you've really covered all the areas that I wanted to talk about anyway. But I think going back to Dr. Laskow, I think if people can just recognize that discovering the love within themselves is started by by giving love to others. I think people find it
Mm,
easier to give love to others than they do to themselves.
sure. Sure.
And, just reducing down, as I said earlier, reducing down the amount of judging we do. You know, that thing of going into the office and, oh, I don't like that person's hairstyle, or what are they wearing today? Or, things that we think are throwaway lines that don't judge anybody. Don't
Mhm.
try to be aware of because as soon as we cut away that judgment of others, then we will stop judging ourselves and we'll be
Mm.
kinder to ourselves. Does that make
Makes
sense?
sense. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because when we start, I mean, it's really hard to be kind to others in general if we're not kind to ourselves. I mean, I just kind of thought about that. I'm like, it's on the surface, maybe it might be at first, but then really deep down, if you continue on that path, it's just hard. It's hard to maintain, I think.
I think
Yeah.
the biggest step in personal growth is when we can have those people that we don't automatically connect with, and yet we connect with them.
Mm,
The difficult people in life, there are people that we just don't, there's some sort of um, gulf between us and them and the way of our thinking. And if we can take that extra effort to understand them and try to understand why they're in our lives, they're in
mhm.
our lives for us, not against us.
Right, right. They're in our I love that. They're in our life for a reason because sometimes I hear people say, "Oh, I can't believe that person is there. They're bothering me," or that
Yeah,
coworker that I have to
yeah,
work with. I can't believe they're there. I love it that you just flipped the narrative to say that, wait a minute, that person is there for a reason. That person is there to help you develop more as the person you are supposed to become.
yes.
I reminded myself of that is the last several months that I've worked the job that I was in, as challenging as it was. Today, I am a much different person than I was when I started that job 5 months ago.
Fantastic.
And it was by the people that I met, the circumstances that I went through, everything. I am a completely different person in a number of respects, not 100%, but completely different person in all those circumstances I walked through, different today than I was back then. So I think it's just, as we've been talking about, just a matter of perspective and how we view what's happening to us. It's not to us, it's for us. And then the stories that we tell ourselves. So, hey, Jeff, and I love answering this question, asking this question of everybody. As we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Well, I've advocated journaling, and I'm a great proponent. If you want to do something on your own and see what your mind is telling you, try journaling tomorrow morning, and then the next morning, and the next morning. I mean, I can offer the blank canvas process. I am so it's my passion, and I will offer your listeners, a free session. Fill in the assessment, have a free session. It takes 40 minutes over Zoom or whatever, and just feel the freedom it gives you within those 40 minutes.
Wow.
Just feel it.
Thank you.
And if they never do it again, that's fine. It's that's your personal choice. But I want people to know that they need not be trapped, frustrated, confused. That there is something that releases this. Okay.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Geoff. How can people find you? I mean, I'll put stuff in the show notes, but I like to ask the question as well.
Yeah, I mean, my website is geoffsober.com, and the information about me is there. And thank you for sharing I think I've got the link to the assessment and the link to, if people want to take up my offer of this free session, then they can book into my calendar.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Geoff, thank you for the gift of your time. This has been a great conversation. I enjoyed it very much so.
Oh, I've loved speaking with you, Sue, and great minds think alike. We think in very similar ways.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.